All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on the two social studies curricula we are considering adopting for next year. I'm Lindsay Woodard, the District Social Studies Instructional Support Specialist. Throughout the webinar, we encourage you to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to ask questions. Each curriculum representative who is presenting tonight will be answering specific questions about their materials after they finished their specific presentation. And then I'll be answering more general type questions near the end of the webinar. This evening's webinar is being recorded so that anyone who was unable to attend can still watch it. But do know that there is another identical webinar on Monday, March 14th at 12 noon. If anyone is interested in contacting me, here is my email address. It's lwoodard@sbunified.org. All right, the purpose of this webinar this evening is to share out with the community the two curricula that we're considering adopting starting next year. The one for 7th and 8th grade is SAVIS, and the one for grades 10 and 11 is Teachers Curriculum Institute, or TCI. And then at the end of the webinar, you will have a chance to go to a Google form and give us your input after you've seen the materials presented to you tonight. All right, we're going to start with the process. Starting in the spring of 2021, in the 7th and 8th grades, teachers had the opportunity to look at 5 different programs. The state of California kind of pre-vets programs for social studies in grades K through 8, meaning they've ensured that they align to California state content standards, as well as to the history social science framework. There are others out there, they just have not been vetted by the State Department of Education. And of those 5 that the state has already approved, we decided to look at Discovery Education, McGraw-Hill, National Geographic, no, sorry, not National Geographic, SAVIS. You may know that company as Pearson. It was known by that name for a long time. And then Teachers Curriculum Institute, TCI. Whoops, there we go. For 10th and 11th grade, it was pretty much the same. Oh, I see there is a correction I need to make there. Give me 1 minute. I need to converse with my support team. Okay, I think we should be good to go now. Okay, so the Department of Education does not pre-approve programs for grades 9 through 12. So that slide's actually incorrect, and I'll have to update that. But we went ahead and we piloted the same 4 publishers as we did with grades 7 and 8. So that was Discovery Education, McGraw-Hill, SAVIS, and TCI once again. And this is some of the feedback that we got from teachers after they had a chance to actually pilot the programs with their students in their classes. And regarding SAVIS, they said things like the literacy skills needed to read a textbook and primary sources are embedded into the text throughout each chapter. So clearly they liked that it was supporting those reading skills. Each section also includes analysis skills for students to learn and use and build upon throughout the year. So those are those higher level thinking skills that we're always pushing our students towards. There's embedded primary sources, critical thinking questions, and more modern, culturally responsible images and photos than they saw in some of the other programs. Videos are embedded. Review pages make reviewing before a project-based or standard assessment more accessible. And then you'll hear a little bit later about something called Quest with Savvis. And one teacher said the Quest activities also allow for students to keep track of the learning goals and products throughout their reading and lesson. The 10th and 11th grade teachers came back with comments about TCI, such as more user-friendly than the other programs they looked at. The Spanish materials were authentic. They felt it was very user-friendly for the students. It was good for a really deep dive. Some of the other programs didn't go quite as much into depth. Another teacher commented about the quality of the Spanish translations, higher quality than the other programs. It's packaged so well that a lot of the lessons are ready to just pick up and run with. Same with the projects. And importantly, they felt that the reading level was appropriate for students, especially those that would be considered like an at-level 10th or 11th grade student. Okay, so here are some of the reasons why the teachers are electing to go with Savvis for grades 7 and 8. It's research-based, and of course, it aligns to the state standards for history and social science. They liked that the instructional model was very mindful of students. It tried to be engaging and be relevant, which is what we want for our students. They liked the balance of direct instruction, small group interaction, lots of hands-on practice. They felt that the digital resources were incredibly robust, and there was lots of embedded reading support for students who needed it. Additionally, they loved that each unit launches with an inquiry strand. So you're piquing students' interests right from the beginning and carrying that through the entire unit. Lots of project-based learning, which is we found so much more engaging for students. There's civic discussion, and then there's lots of writing activities that are based on actual primary and secondary source documents. Lots of skills embedded that actually apply to college and career readiness, and an emphasis on being active participants in the civic process. They felt that the lessons were very comprehensive. They loved that rich media assets are embedded digitally into the lessons. And of course, every student in the district has an iPad, so it's very easy to access all of that media content. And they just felt overall that the content was incredibly relevant to the modern student. And now I'd like to introduce Brenda Carlson. She is our curriculum specialist joining us from Savvis. She's going to be sharing some materials, and be sure to ask questions in the Q&A, because when she's finished, we're going to be fielding some of those questions that you might have.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, are we seeing my screen? Awesome, thank you. So California My World Interactive by Savvis Learning Company, formerly Pearson Education, is a program that was, as Lindsay said, vetted by the state of California to meet the standards in the current framework. When your students will be accessing this curriculum in print, there are two pieces to that program. You're going to have a student book that is a hardcover book, and you're seeing the two titles on the screen right here. But with each title, you will also find that your students will have their very own consumable companion to that text, and we call that the active journal. And this is where some of those rich content and activities that were mentioned by Lindsay are going to be found. In a minute, I'll show you what that looks like inside. But just know that your students are going to be applying their reading comprehension strategies there. It's a place for them to process the content. It's going to support the inquiry approach to history, social science, and along with that extended project that we call the quest. It's going to really allow students also to engage in those collaborative activities as well. So it's a support piece throughout their instruction in history, social science. So both of these resources, plus much, much more that Lindsay mentioned in terms of robust digital resources, are going to be found on our digital platform that we call Savvis Realize. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen so I can show you a little bit of what that looks like. So when your student logs in, they're going to see a screen similar to this, and you're going to find that any current assignments will be listed right here for them. But if they have more than 3 that they need to access at a time, they would just simply click on this assignments button right here. And that's going to take them into their assignment list. So assignments will be listed for them that have been assigned by their teacher in 3 columns: not started, in progress, and completed. So you can see that my student here has all 3 of those there. They will also be able to access the entire e-text right here in both English and Spanish. So it's right there for them. And I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. I do want to just make a note here that this not started assignment is additional practice from a quiz that a student took. So when the student takes a lesson quiz, it's going to provide automatic remediation based on the questions that they missed, so that they can go back and review that content and make sure they have a good understanding of it before they finish the topic and take that topic test. So in progress, I have a few assignments here. And when a student wants to access assignment, they're simply going to click, and here they'll find the place where they will turn in their assignment and information and comments from their teacher if needed. And they would simply click the title of that assignment to launch it. So here we're looking at the active journal in the digital platform, which is going to be a fillable PDF, and it will look like this. So you can see how this is supporting students from the beginning of the topic with an inquiry approach and an essential question. The project-based quest is going to be supported, and step by step, they'll be able to use this as a place to record that inquiry process as well. So here the project is going to be focused on geography, and students will be making a map. Each lesson will have what we call quest connections, so that students can record the learning that applies to this quest project and supports them with that process right there in that active journal. But they'll also have a place where they can take notes and practice literacy skills such as main idea and details and sequencing. And they'll also have a page where they can practice their vocabulary for that lesson as well. Collaborative activities are incorporated into that active journal as well to get students engaged with each other, a team challenge, having fun with the content in multiple modalities. The digital text itself will look like this. And in this case, there's a lesson here that's been assigned to the student. So they'll be able to click into that e-text and see exactly which lessons have been assigned to them. Here you're seeing that embedded videos that were mentioned earlier, and just an interactive approach to the digital text itself. Their table of contents here, they can navigate to access the pages. At the top of the page, you're always going to have a audio support that is done with professionally read narrative or audio.
Settlement and geography of the Americas. The first people to settle in the Americas came from Asia.
Students will be able to interact with this text by highlighting circling or underlining in 4 different colors and making notes right there within that digital text. One nice feature of this Realize Reader interactive text is that it is compatible with Google Translate, so that while we do have a Spanish version of the text, multiple languages can be supported by the text. So here I am able to choose from a variety of languages that are supported by Google Translate and simply hit the translate button in order to provide that translation. For audio support that goes along with Google Translate, another Chrome extension called Read Aloud will support that.
Asentamiento y geografía de la.
So in addition to the e-text that's interactive and the active journal, another example of a digital resource are these digital interactives. We have 3D models, interactive maps, and interactive image galleries like you're seeing here on the screen that students can scroll through and examine and then have an opportunity to respond to. So that's just a quick look at what My World Interactive has to offer for your students. And any questions, Lindsay, coming in?
I don't see any questions in the Q&A at all. We can take a minute and let people type their questions now if they have any. Okay, we got a question, yay. The question is, what topics are covered? So Brenda, I don't know, are you able to share a view of like the table of contents?
So let's go in here and I'll turn that back into English. So the topics that are covered in the program, and this is here you're looking at 7th grade, the world history, they're all aligned exactly with the standards that are put forth by the state of California. So you can see those here on the right-hand side. This is what we're studying in 7th grade in terms of world history and those various topics.
Thanks. And we got one more question. And it's a question regarding how this program integrates with a learning management system, such as Canvas, which the teachers will be using next year. Are you able to speak to that?
Yeah, just briefly, we do have an integration with Canvas, and your account manager, Patty Fair, who's on the line, can work with you to get that integration done on the back end. We have a complete integration with Canvas, so that rather than the teacher and student navigating the platform I'm showing you here, all of these resources and assignments and the e-text itself would appear as an assignment within Canvas itself. So grades would also pass back between the assignments here and right into that Canvas environment.
Okay, and we got a third question about when this will be rolled out. So assuming our board approves the adoption of both SAVIS and TCI, and that if that were to happen, that would be at the April 12th board meeting, teachers would have the option to be trained on the materials in either June or August, and then they would start using it in the 2022-23 school year. Any other questions before we move on to TCI? Okay, thank you so much, Brenda. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Let's talk about TCI for a little bit here. So TCI is the program that the 10th and 11th grade teachers preferred. Again, standards aligned, and they felt that it was incredibly strong in its student-centered instructional model. I myself have used TCI to teach social studies in grades 5, 7, 8, and 11. So I'm actually quite familiar with this program, and I would definitely agree that the projects that are involved are highly collaborative. There's lots of strong analytical writing assignments, critical thinking challenges, lots of group work where the kids have to collaborate to solve problems together. Additionally, there are literacy standards that also go along with history and social science courses. And all of the skills that are required that students develop in those standards are embedded throughout TCI. They do quite a bit of work analyzing documents, both primary and secondary. They study court cases. They will do case studies related to whatever the topic is. And then TCI is known for having like 6 unique kind of hands-on classroom strategies. And they're inquiry-based. Students have to ask questions. They have to conduct research. And they actually get to do democracy. Like the subtitle of the program is History Alive, and it's bringing everything alive. So there's lots of civic discourse. They build that historical empathy by reading primary source documents from a wide range of perspectives. They have to make written and oral arguments. They have to share claims that they support with evidence. I mean, these are things they're doing, in their English classes as well. So they get that really nice cross-curricular advantage. And let me double check that our rep from TCI is here. I don't think she has joined us just yet. Her name is Kelsey Moore. I can talk a little bit more about the program until she arrives, having personal experience with it for many years. I can say that the kids are getting up out of their seats regularly with this program, which they love. They almost can't help but be engaged with it. When I taught 8th grade US history, for example, there was an activity where student groups would assume the identity of a certain country that was looking to, establish an empire. So we had Portugal, we had Spain, we had, the Netherlands, and they got different amounts of sticky notes in order to claim land, which was just furniture in the classroom. But different countries got different numbers of sticky notes, but the other groups did not know that. So that all of a sudden, when they see Spain has claimed so much of the furniture in the room, they get pretty upset. And what they come to realize is like, oh, that's because in history, Spain got a head start. So they were able to grab a lot more land and claim it for their own. Let me connect with my team here. Give me 1 minute.
Lindsay, there's a question in the chat.
Okay.
That is, this person is curious about content being presented in a way that encourages critical thinking and discussion. Can you speak to that?
Critical thinking and discussion. So a lot of the work they do, they're being asked to analyze and evaluate. So those are definitely higher level critical thinking skills. So they might be, comparing primary source documents that take 2 different viewpoints, for example, and they have to think about, well, what would account for the differing points of view? They might have to use both in a piece of writing to defend an argument. So that's all great critical thinking. And then Sierra, what was the second part of it? The critical thinking and... I can pull up the Q&A.
A discussion.
Oh, discussion, yes. And I'm assuming we're talking about TCI, or maybe this is Savis. Either way, they both, because they are so student-centered, they're asking the kids to think, but it's lots of group work where they're paired, they're in small groups, sometimes even large groups, and they have to, process what they've been learning about. TCI specifically, I'm thinking of They do lots of gallery walks where things are posted around the room and the students have to travel in small groups, talk about what it is they're seeing, what it seems to suggest, what it's proving, what it's disproving. But then there's also like whole group discussion based on essential type questions that go along with the units. So both programs are very active is how I would describe them. Which again, just leads to high levels of engagement with the students. And that's definitely what you want. I have a question about how these curricula are different from the current curricula, and I can certainly answer that one at the end, near the end of the webinar. We have a time for questions, and that's such a general question that I'm going to hold on to that one. Okay. I don't think we have Kelsey Moore here yet. Let me just double check. Okay, I will keep speaking to her program for her. So just like SAVIS, TCI also has a completely digital component. And with the touch of a button, it can translate into Spanish. It can read the text aloud for students who need it, want it. A lot of similarities in that regard. TCI also has something called an interactive student notebook, and kids can get that hard copy. It's also available digitally, and the digital version will also translate into Spanish. And it helps them process what it is they're learning in all sorts of creative ways. They might be, writing a letter to a historical figure, or it might just be a graphic organizer that's helping them organize the information that they're taking in into main ideas, details. I'm thinking of one page in the interactive student notebook I used in 8th grade, where students were studying, the lead up to the American Revolution. And the page in the interactive student notebook looked like a road with signposts all along it. And so they had to fill in those signposts with events that, were causes of the American Revolution. It's just a much more engaging way to organize students' notes and process the information versus, just always taking notes on a piece of paper the same way. And Kelsey Moore has arrived. Perfect timing. Okay, Kelsey, whenever you're ready, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so that you can share your screen and
Awesome.
show us a little bit of what a TCI looks like.
Awesome. Let me pull this up. Hello, everybody. Share this. Are you seeing my screen right here?
Yes, we got it.
Awesome. Well, hello. Thank you so much for inviting me here to be able to share. I'll just to let everybody know, I am a former high school social studies teacher. So I taught for 8 years, and I use TCI in my classroom, and I love it. And so that is why I do what I do. And I'm here to share with you just a little bit about our 10th and 11th grade high school social studies program. So the programs that we're looking at here are 10th grade World Connections and 11th grade US History. And a little bit of background about TCI is we've been around for over 35 years now. And we were started, gosh, a long time ago by Dr. Bert Bauer. When he talks about his story, he shares that he was sick of the social studies sigh, right? That, all right, it's time for social studies. And kids are like, oh, it shouldn't be like that. It should be fun. It should be interactive. It should be engaging. And that really is how TCI got started. Was as a company that we're going to do our best to help teachers engage their students, get them up and moving in the classroom, be engaged in social studies curriculum. And that's how TCI came to be. By the way, TCI stands for Teachers Curriculum Institute, if anyone is wondering about that. Just a little bit of background on each of the programs in world history. When we look at 10th grade, when we look at that program, we're looking at a global perspective. We're looking at some memorable case studies, purposeful inquiry to connect to world history themes. You're going to see a lot of primary sources in the materials, so helping students develop their arguments, and looking at some global themes of cultural interaction, political structures, economic structures, social structures, and human environment interaction. And as we look at US history, we're going to look at different eras throughout US history viewed through the lens of 5 ideals. So equality, rights, liberty, opportunity, democracy. How has the United States done looking through the lens of those ideals? And then activities throughout the program where students are going to develop and debate their own perspectives, being able to reflect on these ideals and consistently being able to make connections to today. Really the heart of our company, and as we go through, is this, just as we look at this picture here, student interaction and student engagement, to be able to see that learning come alive for them. And as we look at the framework and we look at universal access, citizenship, content, inquiry, if I could speak here, literacy, those are so important, and they're going to be embedded in the program as students are using it, as teachers are teaching from this, to be able to see that learning come alive for students. Now, there's a couple links that the district has provided for you in some bit.lys, or they will provide. I don't know, Lindsay, if they've seen these yet.
Yeah,
but I just,
they will.
Okay, perfect. So I just want to show you what this looks like. Oops, not there. A couple of these links so you can see a little bit more about the program for yourself. So you'll see what makes TCI different? What does that look like? Again, getting kids moving around, having ease of use for teachers and for your students. So you'll see a little bit more about that. And then I've also included as one of the links just an overview of the program to be able to go through. So this is going to have some, not just the 2 programs that the district is looking at, but all of our high school programs. We're talking a little bit more about our content, inquiry, citizenship, literacy, diving into those a little bit more for you to be able to learn more about that. Also included in the links that you'll be getting are some instructions for you to be able to create your own student account, to be able to check out the materials for yourself. So to be able to dive in, be able to see what your students would be able to see. And so that's going to all be provided for you. But I'm so excited for the district to be able to have these materials at the high school level. Like I said, as a high school teacher, I just know the difference this makes. And I'm really excited and looking forward to potentially being able to have that. So Lindsay, that's just a little bit of background, and then I know that there might be some questions or some other pieces. Would you like me to give screen back to you?
You could stay in your screen share. I'm looking in the Q&A. I see a couple of questions that I'll answer near the end of the webinar because they're like more general in nature and they apply to both curricula that we've seen.
Okay. Perfect.
Would anybody else like to ask a question in the Q&A for Kelsey Moore while we have her here? Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions coming in. Kelsey, do you want to stick around just for a few minutes in case something?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just mute myself and I'll be right here. And that way, if there's some questions that come up, I'll be here to answer.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and reshare. Oh, here's a question. Kelsey, do you have a favorite unit?
Oh, man. Okay, so I mostly taught 9th grade world geography, which is not a program that we're looking at, but I did teach in US history for a little bit. And we did this whole Ellis Island simulation, which ultimately just was something that it would be one of those things that my students, even long after I taught juniors, right? How long after 11th grade, students would stop by my classroom and be like, Mrs. Moore, are you still doing that Ellis Island activity? And that's that is the kind of stuff that I just love, right? Because that's the stuff that kids remember and that experience that they can have, right? The best that they can have in a classroom setting, but to connect to the content and to the materials that they're going to be reading. So that for me was something that really stood out as a classroom teacher.
Yeah, and my favorite unit was probably because of the activity that went along with it. Regarding immigration, like around the turn of the 20th century, and we studied the Sacco and Vanzetti case and the trial, and then the kids actually had to do a mock trial, which was a lot of fun.
Totally, right? It's just that that experience, right? That interactivity, that is the stuff that students really remember.
Okay, and then we got actually a comment, not a question, but I think it's helpful to share. It says, I love, and this person is both a parent and a teacher, by the way. I love how TCI has decentered world history and favors a truly global approach. I also appreciate the interactive character of the program. So thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, let's continue. I want to speak to how both of these programs support students with disabilities, students who might still be learning English, and then students enrolled in our dual immersion program. So as you saw in the SAVIS presentation, but TCI does this as well, students can actually listen to the text being read to them. And for students who have any sort of issues with reading, like processing text, hearing it is so beneficial. And in fact, some students might even have accommodations where they have to listen to text. So that's already embedded and taken care of. The fact that both texts are available in Spanish, and the vocabulary also can have English and Spanish translation, both like academic type vocabulary as well as content specific vocabulary. That's really helpful. And then of course, with dual language programs, having the text fully available in Spanish is fantastic. If some of you would like to come see the materials in real life, you can do that. During business hours, you can come to the district office, go to the second floor where the Educational Services Department is. You can ask for Alma Flores, and she can show you where you can sit in a nice quiet room and look at all the materials for as long as you would like. And then Kelsey had mentioned this. You can also spend more time with the materials digitally if you would like. And the link to look at the SAVIS materials is bit.ly/look-at-SAVIS. And SAVIS has 2 V's. If you want to take a look at the TCI materials, go to bit.ly/look-at-TCI. All right, I said I would come back to a couple of questions. I'm going to do that now. Someone had asked how these curricula are different from what we're currently using. It's nice to know that actually our junior highs currently use TCI. So that's just being shifted now to the high school level. The high schools are currently using a program that I believe is from 2006. So it's a little outdated. And the other thing is it doesn't have that highly interactive, engaging component. It's a lot of students just working independently, sitting at their desks, reading, answering questions, taking tests, very, very traditional approach. And, when we can get kids more engaged, they're going to learn more. That's just how it works. So we're excited that the new program, especially at the high school level, but then also the junior high one, just has the kids interacting with what they're learning to such a great extent. And then another question is, how does this curriculum relate to the California Ethnic Studies curriculum? And now I really wish we had our instructional support specialist for ethnic studies here, because he could help me out with this one. But I can tell you that my own daughter took the ethnic studies class last year as a freshman. And so much of what she studied in there is things that had been addressed in just like a general US history curriculum, same as you would find in the TCI text. It's just that they were more narrow and they went deeper with the topics that they studied in there. So whereas these programs would be more broad, ethnic studies is more narrow, but there is quite a bit of overlap. Anybody else want to ask a question? Okay, You can still put questions in the Q&A, but I'm going to go on to our final activity. And this is your chance to provide input on both programs that you saw tonight, or just one of them, if that's all you're interested in. So if you go to bit.ly/textbookinput, you will arrive at a Google form that will ask you for your input. There's also an optional question at the end. If you would like somebody from the district to contact you, we are happy to do that. You can leave your email address and/or your cell number, and we will certainly be in touch. Somebody wants me to go back to the previous slide. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll return to this one. I'm wondering if the previous slide maybe was how to view the materials or to get the digital link. So I'll stay here for a moment. Okay, and I think we're good to go back to the link to the Google form to give us your input. bit.ly/textbookinput. Okay, and that is all that we have for this evening. Once again, this is being recorded and that link will be sent out. And then we have our second webinar with all the same exact information on Monday, March 14th at 12 noon. So you're free to go and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for those of you who are providing input. And thanks again for being here. Good night.